I'm Elle Embers, and this is Cosmic Curiosities.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cosmic Curiosities. I cannot believe we're at episode 9. This has happened so quickly and has been such a journey, and I am so grateful to share it with you guys. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for tuning in each week. I definitely could not do what I do without your support. So, thank you. With that being said, I guess I should dive into this week's episode. In this week's episode, we are stepping into the edge of darkness and into the edge of glory, discussing the importance and the misunderstanding behind shadow work. To join me in the conversation is mindset and manifestation coach, Simone. Simone is super passionate about teaching the dualities. The duality of masculine and feminine energy, the duality of light work and shadow work. She also helps guide women into connecting to their bodies, connecting to their intuition, and learning to trust themselves on a deeper level, and help them become a more energetic match to their most aligned desires. And through our shadows, Simone encourages us to embrace all parts of ourselves, to fully reclaim our power. So, young Jedi, go grab a torch, because we're going to the dark side. Hi Simone, how are you?
So lovely to be here with you. I am really well. Thank you, lovely.
Thanks so much for joining us. Before we get started, would you like to introduce yourself and tell everyone a little bit about you and what it is you do?
I'd love to. So my name's Simone, and I love really guiding women through that kind of healing process, because I see how through that process of healing, clarity naturally comes with direction, with purpose, and then there gets to be this like potency with whatever it is that they choose to create on the other side of that. So I love walking women through that kind of transformation from feeling disconnected or lost to coming back into that full authority within themselves and that authenticity in a nutshell.
Amazing. Thanks so much for sharing with us. And let's say, what's your top 3?
Oh my gosh. Well, when it comes to healing,
Mm-hmm.
healing modalities is really, really interesting. I weave so many different modalities. It really depends on where a woman's at, right? Depending on what she needs. But for sure, it's going to include some shadow work. It's going to include some energetical work, and it's going to definitely include embodiment practices, because we get to really like call in our future self through embodiment practices. And that's really powerful. So that's like top 3 would be those.
What first led you to working in the holistic and spiritual healing industry? Because this is obviously a very big passion of yours. How'd you find yourself there?
I really have this belief that we chose our parents for a reason. And I had a deep initiation into this desire for healing from my own upbringing. So, very broad overview, being born to a beautiful woman who felt very disconnected, who'd experienced deep depression, trauma, anxiety, and she's been such a guardian angel in all the lessons that she's taught me. So growing up and seeing someone who didn't love themselves and not having any assistance with really working through trauma, and how that kind of played a massive role in her life. So she went into then becoming an alcoholic and being married to a very physically abusive husband for 10 years. And witnessing that as a young girl was terrifying. And it also it was an initiation, because then at 14, I got shingles as a stress response, as an emotional response. I didn't have any capacity of how to deal with emotions. And I was in talk therapy for 4 years from the age of 14, and I was still sitting with trauma. I was still sitting with this feeling of being blocked. And so that, in a way, was like my big initiation into doing what I do now, is experiencing the chronic illness and the effects that our emotions do have on our bodies, whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing about childhood and upbringing, is it's just so conforming to the
Mm.
rest of your life. And we don't realize, I guess, as parents as well, how our choices and how our emotions about ourselves and our environments affect our kids and people around us.
It's huge, right? Because children don't pick up on what you tell them, they pick up on what you do and your energy. And they're so intuitive. So you learn and you pick up on everything between the lines.
Absolutely. Yeah. And why do you think balance is so important regarding our energy and healing, processing those traumas and finding that love for ourselves?
I love that. Balance is the daily dance, right? I see that we live this world in a polarity, and we're taught separation. We're taught to be on one side or the other. And for me, a big part of my journey has been, okay, I see and I've experienced both sides. And how can we come back into unison? It's huge. And I feel like we're walking, we're finding that path, and just knowing that it is a continual dance daily.
Yeah. What really came up for me then when you brought up polarity was just the light and the dark, and how everybody thinks that it's opposites and that you have to have one or the other, when really you need one to have the other. You need both to make it work. You need that unison. You need that sense of togetherness, unitedness. I don't even know if unitedness is a word, but we're going to use
It
that
is now.
But just having that realization that it's not one or the other, it's not good or bad, it's not right or wrong, it's just duality, it's just doing it together.
It's so huge. It's so huge, because it's, can we accept all parts of ourselves? Can we really accept all parts of ourselves? Can we not give in to that spiritual bypassing? No. I definitely experienced that for a long time, where I suppressed my emotions that were rage, that were anger, that did feel like, oh my gosh, I can't feel this, because it feels like I don't know what I'm going to do if I allow myself to feel it. And that ultimately was what led to my illnesses, was because I wasn't willing to express it. I wasn't willing to accept the feeling. And I do feel, when we speak about going into affirmations and doing all of the light, it's like, it is literally like imagining that your dog has just done a big poo on the carpet, and you're just saying, it smells like roses, it smells like roses, it smells like roses. It's like, no, it doesn't. And your body knows that, right? Your body is like, no, it doesn't, you're lying to me. And it's the same with our emotions. When we're like, I'm abundant and I'm free and I'm happy, and your body is holding on to past trauma, your body is like, bullshit, that's not true. And so I really see that to the depths that we can go within our being allows us to soar to the heights of our soul. But we must go in order to come up. Like, that is the portal.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like lying to yourself is not going to make the problem go away. It's not
Yeah.
going to fix the issue. It's not going to solve the root cause of it. You're just kind of, yeah, like you said, just lying to yourself, pretending this is fine, this is great, this smells amazing. When in reality, it's just not.
And I think it also then perpetuates the shame and guilt around those emotions, when actually it's like, can we actually see the anger as sacred? Because it is. fear as a teacher, because it is. And really then, the opportunity is, knowing that, yeah, there's a time when it is necessary for your ferociousness to come out as a woman, because that is saying to you, a boundary has been crossed that is not okay. So it's this feedback loop. It's teaching you about where your boundaries are, what your values are, and it then gives you the opportunity to claim it, to free your voice, right? Your throat chakra, of then speaking into it. And it also gives you the opportunity to then sit with your inner child and rewire and release trauma from the past, just from having the reverency for those challenging emotions when it comes up in the moment.
Yeah, not being afraid of it, not walking away from it.
Yeah.
Do you feel as though there has been a big unbalance between light and dark in our industry, especially with practitioners? We have so many light workers dealing with so much positive that it's almost toxic in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just we kind of maybe narrow a little bit onto that toxic positivity when people that are dealing in shadow work and dealing with your trauma and processing your trauma instead of burying it and hiding it away. It's a lot less talked about, I find. Would you agree?
Yeah, I do. I do. And I think there's just been such a stigma that's attached to shadow work. Like I don't want to dress in like black clothes and be around like screaming, uncontrollable, hysterical women. And I'm like, I can't deal with that. That's too intense. And I feel like this is why I see such a potency with one-on-one containers, right? Because I agree, there are some times where shadow work can be happening, and I'm very aware of re-traumatization, having come from a place where I had my triggers around loudness, around a woman being hysterical. That was very triggering for me when I began. And so I do really believe in sacred containers where we're not re-traumatizing someone. And this is why I do really see like there is a responsibility. There is a responsibility to take someone into trauma in a very trauma-informed way so that they're not re-experiencing something that is really traumatic for them. And I do think there does get to be an awareness piece around that. And that's why I do feel that why I love my work, working with women one-on-one, is because they can feel safe. There's no one else around them, and they can be deeply guided to just lean into the edge, right? We have this really all or nothing mentality, right? Across so many boards in our life, right? Even with health, it's like get the bikini body in 6 weeks, like slam yourself, all or nothing, right? And then just you can't sustain it. It's the same I see with trauma and shadow work. So it's like we just find the edge, and then we pull back and we can come back into the light and the love. We don't have to stay in the dark cave. We don't have to stay in the trauma. And I feel that when we just focus on the light, and this was from my experience, when I wasn't seeing my external world shift, I thought there was something wrong with me. Like, why isn't it changing? I'm doing the affirmations. I'm like writing my vision board. I'm dancing. I'm singing. I'm doing all the things. And I still feel like not connected to what I'm doing. Like my body's calling out bullshit. And it gets to a point where then there can be this unhealthy feedback loop where we begin to think it's something wrong with us. Everyone else is doing this and they're all getting results. What's wrong with me? And there isn't anything wrong with you. It's just your body hasn't caught up, and it just needs a little bit of space to move through some of the trauma, just to do a little bit of clearing and then move through that. And you can do them at the same time. Totally.
Yeah. I think a lot of the time too, we do kind of get stuck in society as that comparison mindset of, this person's doing so much better than me, or this person doesn't have that problem. Why do I have this problem? What's wrong with me? I think a lot of the time we do as society resort back to those mentalities. And so we forget that it's like, well, hang on a minute. What works for them may not work for me, and vice versa. So I think that's really important to even just be aware that we all move through our journeys at different speeds. We have mentioned stigmas in shadow work. But do you feel as though that is shifting, or it is changing, or in a positive way or in a negative way?
I do feel that there's a more openness to at least looking at the shadow work. I do see a lot of beautiful conversations happening around trauma informed. And this can be trauma informed movement, trauma informed marketing, trauma informed, all the things. And I love hearing that, because I do think that it's time to really like come into a reverency with all of ourselves, with every aspect of our being, with all of our characteristics, with all the facets of who we are. And that, to feel that in a unison within you, is how you actually then come back to your authentic self, because you're no longer judging yourself or shaming yourself or feeling guilty about something that you've done. It's really like stepping into your power and reclaiming and taking full responsibility. It is going to include looking at the shadow. And for some people, it's going to take a long time until it catches up with them. For other people, it won't. But ultimately, it will get to a point where your body is going to either whisper to you or shout at you that something has been going on underneath the surface for a while that maybe you've been trying to ignore. But it does come to a head because we want to evolve, like our souls want to evolve. And so it does want to be faced ultimately. And it's just up to you, I guess, like if you're willing to listen to the whisper or if you're going to wait for the slap. And I say that with compassion because I've been slapped many times.
I love that metaphor, actually. Just, yeah. It's like, look, we can say this nicely, we can have a nice conversation, or I'm gonna knock you the fuck out. Like, you're gonna deal with it either way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying there with having more informed people around trauma. You know, it helps us to deal with it and also be less triggering to those around us, because so often we don't realize how our mentality, how our energy, how our feelings affect the people around us. We just think we're in our own little bubble and nothing seems to matter. But really, you have such an effect on everybody you come into contact with. And even just being aware of how your mindset, how you're processing your emotions, how you're processing your shadows, and how that affects them is so huge. It has such an impact.
Yeah, it's also knowing that we have the responsibility for ourselves, right? Especially when we look to generational trauma, especially when we look to things that have been passed through generations. Like I work with a lot of women, and it's like they've chosen that family to be born into because there's something in that lineage that is ready to be healed on a lineal level, like through generations. And as challenging as it can be to sit with that, it's like, no, like that generational trauma gets to stop with you, so that you're not now passing that on. And to actually see with such compassion, because our parents and our grandparents, they're always doing the best that they knew how to. And knowing that, right? Knowing that, yes, they're not perfect. No one's perfect. We're all continually on this journey. It's like, it gets to stop with me. I'm willing to step up to the plate. I'm willing to see the shadows that have been playing out. I'm willing to get out of the victim mentality. And I'm willing to take full responsibility for my part. And my part can be simply like the choice of being born into the family, right? There's a reason. And there's no mistake why you're now the one who wants to change it. You're now the one who's like, okay, this is enough. I've seen this play out for long enough, and I can't live like this anymore. So yes, like, and it's not going to be easy because it's not just you. You're healing so many generations before that. And yeah, it's such beautiful, transformative work when you think about it, because regardless if you want to be a mother or a parent one day, you are going to be around children. Your friends are going to have children. Your brothers or sisters are going to have children. And they are going to see a new way of being through the way that you live. And that's really powerful.
So powerful. Because, you know, if it's shit for you to deal with and you are struggling, why would you want to put that onto somebody else? Why would you want to put that onto your kids or your nieces or nephews or cousins or whatever? Whatever kids that you're around, they shouldn't have to go through that same shit. Each generation should be getting better and better and having less issues to deal with. But that's not always the case.
Yeah. And also, I feel like until we become a parent, we get used to our own neuroses and we think, oh, it's okay. It's not a big thing. Like maybe we have actually dealt with a lot of the big things. And there's still like a few little like neuroses that we don't maybe see as something like a big thing. But then when we come into question and we're tuning into maybe stepping into parenthood, then it's like, well, you know what, that maybe is not something that I do want to pass on. And so it gives another window, another opportunity to really deepen the work in all those areas that are not maybe critical, right? But they still matter, because if you're a hypochondriac, for example, about your health, and you get really anxious just at the thought of being ill, well, then you're going to be passing that on. And is it something that you want to pass on, this inherent kind of distrust in your body? Or do you want to pass on like this deep trust and reverence for the body of like, no, I trust my body. I know I'm always strong. I know I'm always healthy. And for, that next generation just to be absorbing all of that goodness.
Yeah. And even, them being aware that the shadows that do come up aren't always a scary thing. They aren't always a negative thing. And it's not always something that they need to fear. Because I'm sure like there is some shadow work, of course, if you're diving too far into it, you are going to get a little bit lost in the dark there. But if you're doing it like the way that you've explained as well, leaning into it, just on the edge of it and coming back, and then going a little bit further and coming back, and then going a little bit further and coming back as a general guide and process, instead of doing it all in one hit, that's going to be so beneficial for them throughout their lives, for teaching them how to deal with their emotions, how to deal with the shadows, how to deal with the negative aspects that they're experiencing, instead of spiritually bypassing and just going, that's someone else's problem in another couple of generations. Like, they can deal with that. Or, I'll deal with this in my next incarnation, the next family I end up in. Like, no. You're just going to end up making things more difficult for yourself later down the track, more difficult for those around you. But when we're teaching the kids to do it this way, the way that you've explained, it's so much safer for them and so much kinder for them. And again, just instilling that belief that this is not a scary thing. This is not something to run away from.
Yeah, and that's really huge, because when we tune into our nervous system, this is the thing. It's like we need to connect with our nervous system, right? It's millions of years old. We need to connect with our nervous system. We need to understand where we're at in our nervous system. Are we operating from dorsal? Are we operating from fight or flight? Where are we operating from? Because if we're not connected with our nervous system, when we desire to create our desires, our nervous system is not going to feel safe to receive. So you may say, I want to call in the love of my life. I want to call in wealth. And your body is like, F that. I don't feel safe. I don't feel safe to receive that. That doesn't actually feel like that's in resonance with me, because my energetic resonance, the comfort, is still the pain. The comfort is still the trauma. And so this is why we have to go back. We have to kind of do this rewiring loop of really tuning in, really nurturing the nervous system, so that we can reattune the nervous system to feel safe, to actually experience what it is that you desire to experience, versus perpetuating what has been in the past, even if it is painful, even if it is traumatic, because that is the known, and therefore your brain is like, that is safe.
Yeah.
And it is that. It's like, it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be dark. It doesn't have to pull you into the abyss and feel like you lose all sense of yourself. Now, sometimes, yeah, maybe if you've ignored it, then there can be like this real breaking away, and it can literally feel like everything is crumbling around you. And for children, I'd see that as such a beautiful gift of how soon can we allow them to love the anger, to play with the fear. Because I can't remember where I've heard it, but there was this beautiful quote that was like, fear is excitement without breath. And I'm like, yeah, that's so true. Like, it's like so close to that. And yet we're like, just don't feel the fear, ignore it, pretend it's not there. But it's like, no, like it's there teaching you. And it is the excitement energy as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like this reframing around, what do our emotions mean? What judgments do we have around them?
Yeah. I think fear is such a big one. Like,
Mm.
so often people mistake what fear is. And like you said, it can be misinterpreted and actually be excitement.
Mm.
Think about being a kid and, you're, I don't know, in the school play and you're super
Yeah.
nervous and you're super just, I'm so scared to go out there on stage. But
Yeah.
you're so excited. You've worked so hard for this. You're so amazing. You know all your lines
Yeah.
and you're going to kick it. Like, it's going to be great. And so you tensing up and feeling, jittery and going, oh, I'm so scared. You're excited. And it's
Yeah.
okay to feel that way. It's okay to embrace that feeling because it's there to guide you. It's there to
Mm.
push you. It's there to get you on that stage and feel amazing by the end of it.
So true. And it's that beautiful sign of growth, right? It's
Yeah.
growth because it's not comfortable. And I do believe that the beautiful beings that I work with, as well as myself, like I always want to grow. And I know this in my soul. I feel dead in my soul if I don't feel like I'm growing. And so if that's part of your makeup, you get to become friends with fear in a whole new way, because it's a beautiful sign of like, oh, like this is my next edge. This is my next edge. Like, yes, this feels uncomfortable in my body, but oh my gosh, like this is my sign, right? To
Yeah.
move into this, to lean into it a little bit more, to dance with it.
Yeah. I love that. It's so true.
Mm.
How is incorporating both fear and joy and love and light and dark and shadow, how
Mhm.
has incorporating the whole package really influenced you in your spiritual journey?
Oh my gosh. So much, so much, because I have definitely come full circle, right? Growing up in the environment that I did, I had massive judgments around anger, to the point where I could never express my anger. In fact, tears would come out instead, right? There was this real shutdown, real numbness within me. And I had a big judgment against anything that I deemed as not okay. And so what that meant was then I controlled the people in my life. I controlled them. You can't be angry. Then I projected that on everyone around me, my friends, my partners, my family. My box kept getting smaller and smaller. If you want to interact with Simone, you have to interact with her in a certain way. Otherwise, she's not going to respond. She'll cut you out, or she'll just ignore you. And ultimately, it led me living a life that didn't feel true to me. Ultimately, it led me doing things to please others, because I avoided conflict, because I was scared of conflict. So I kind of molded myself into a version of myself that wasn't fully me. And I, at that point, was definitely seeking the light, because I was totally ignoring the shadow. I was like, F the shadow. I don't want to go there. Like, I don't want to go there. I just want to be in the light. Just help me get to the light. That's all I wanted. Right. So I
Yeah.
did all of my journeys, oh my gosh, so many ceremonies, so many teachings and diplomas and all the things, trying to figure out how can I be in the light. And ultimately, I really got to a point where I just felt disconnected, total disconnection, didn't know who I was. And I was just very shut off from my heart, very shut off. I didn't know how to feel. I couldn't really love. Another saying is you can't numb out one emotion without numbing out all emotions. And so that was my experience. Didn't want to feel the anger, didn't want to feel the fear. So I couldn't feel happy. I couldn't feel joy. I couldn't feel all of those things. So through sitting with the shadow, through doing some deep inner journeys, I really realize there is such potency awaiting for us on the other side. There is such clarity of what our purpose is on the other side of the shadow. And that the shadow doesn't have to be all consuming, that the shadow doesn't have to be scary, that the shadow can be this like ferocious, unconditionally loving light, and that it is part of the cycle. We are such seasonal beings, and we need to be willing to let die parts of ourselves in order to be reborn. So on the other side of that was just really like finding myself, stepping into my purpose, not holding myself back anymore, not doubting myself, not caring what other people thought. Like when I first met my partner, he had this beautiful native Maori sleeve tattoo. Mm-hmm. And it was so beautiful. And I always had this desire for a tattoo, but there was so much judgment around it within my family. Don't you ever do that. That is not okay. It's all the things, right? It means that you're this, and this. And I always felt drawn to it. And I remember when we were dating, we've been together for over 8 years now. When we were dating, he was like, well, why don't you? And I was like, no, I couldn't. And it was all this fear around, again, like people pleasing, fear of being rejected, fear of the judgment, all the fear of what does this mean? And there was a fear of commitment too, right? On a very weird level. It was like, I'm scared to commit to this one image on my body. And that was another thing that was like a big fear around for me, was commitment. And now, like, I have many tattoos and I wear them and I show them. And it's just coming full circle to, you get to be whoever the F you want to be.
Yeah.
You really do. And we're all so boundless. So it's like, what does feel true for you? What does feel like this would be so nourishing for me? Or this would feel so expansive for me? Or this would light me so up if I gave this to myself?
Yeah, definitely. Tattoos weren't great in my family, but I went the other way. I was like, oh, you don't like this? Okay, I'll just cover my entire body. Fuck you.
I love it. The inner rebel. I love the inner rebel vibe, right? That's so good.
Oh, I think I knew nothing but the inner rebel for quite a few years.
I love it. It's that fire, right? It's that fire of like wanting to be your own person. And I love that. I see such a beauty in, that the inner rebel, the fire, and like claiming it, not pretending that it's not a part of you.
Yeah, just opening up and being like, this is me. This is, you deal with it or off you go. Like, totally. It's not my problem.
Totally. Love it.
Yeah. So I guess you've spoken a bit about going through your dark to find your light, suppressing those emotions for so long that you couldn't feel any emotions.
Mm.
How did you overcome that? How did you overcome your fear and leaning into the darker sides of healing yourself?
I feel like a big part of being able to do that is really rooted in self-trust. Without self-trust, we don't feel like we can back ourselves. We feel scared to go into the darkness because we don't trust that we're going to be okay. We don't trust that we can hold it. We don't trust that we'll be guided. Because when we look at the word confidence, the origin of the word confidence means to trust yourself. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of this facade of confidence, which is put on, but it's not true confidence that is actually rooted in the meaning of self-trust. And so this is why I feel connecting with their intuition is so important, because for me, following your intuition, and this again gets to be baby steps, is a really powerful portal for you to cultivate self-trust. Can you listen to the whisper, and instead of questioning yourself or taking it to the head and analyzing if it makes sense, can you trust? Can you go and lean into the unknown when it doesn't make any sense? And self-trust for me was very foreign until I started to do deep ceremonial work. And I don't believe it's for everyone. I don't believe it's the path for everyone. It was something that called me because I was so great at overanalyzing everything. I was so great at intellectualizing, and I didn't have any connection with my intuition or my body. So plant medicine, my very first journey, I literally thought I was going to die. I was fighting it. Why? Because my inner child, who had created this little pristine world where, as I mentioned, right, control what other people say in my world, control how other people are allowed to show up in my world. And here I was faced with going through the death portal of, can you surrender to the possibility that you may die in this moment? Like, this is it. And I'm fighting it. I'm fighting it. And I am like, this is not it. This is not how it's supposed to be. Again, control, resisting the surrender, right? So that was like a massive initiation into trust. It was a massive initiation into letting go. But we don't have to go down that route. It can begin with, can we connect with our intuition? And that's a really powerful portal of building that self-trust.
Yeah, I've found a lot of practitioners that I've spoken to that have really come into trusting themselves and have really guided others on that path are ones who have gone in deep and done plant medicine and nearly felt like they're dying. And I feel like this is just such an example of like, we go through the shit so you don't have to. Like, we go through the depths of the ocean, go through the shadows, through the muck, through the mud, and fight our way out to come back and tell you, hey, there's a boat over there. You've got this. Like, and I just think that's so amazing. Like, I've just found that similarity with quite a few of you guys now. And it's so amazing that there are those people that have made that horrendous journey to guide the rest of us so that they may not have to do that. They may have an easier way. They may have a shortcut. For lack of a better term, to really just have a look at this, have a look at their shadows, have a look at their light, and hold both in the same respect, understanding, and love.
It's so true. I mean, it's that beautiful goddess Kali, right? The depictions of Kali, and she's got her tongue out and she's got all these severed heads around her. And maybe she's like standing on top of Shiva, and Shiva is looking up at her like, wow, that's my woman. And this idea around like, oh my gosh, that's disgusting, that's so wrong, and all the things. It's like, this also brings me into the shadow work that gets to happen around sexual expression for women. There's been so much guilt, there's been so much shame, there's been so much trauma of it's not safe, or you ask for it, or all these stories. And it's like, your sexual energy is sacred. Your ferociousness as a woman is sacred. And it's just as sacred as your light. And in fact, if you can see it as sacred, your light is so freaking potent. It's so much more potent because there's like this like gravitas to it. There's like this real depth to it. We haven't just bypassed our root chakra and gone straight to the crown. We are now like this full tunnel of light, because it's like I accept all parts of it, and it does get to be fun, and it does get to be playful, and it does get to be this like, looking at it from this lens of like this beautiful curiosity of a child, the innocence of what it is, and coming from it from that lens. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, I had a bit of a coaching with a shadow work mentor a little bit. And one of her things was, you're going to go and buy yourself a set of the sexiest lingerie that you can find to step into that sensual and carefree love for yourself and sexuality and expression of it, because for so long we have to cover up, we can't have any sort of cleavage, even if, you know, by nature our breasts are just out there.
Totally.
It's just how we're made. And to hide away and to feel shame and to feel uncomfortable because of how you're looking, how you're acting, how you're dressing, like it's not where we should be as women. And so even just having that interaction with that coach and being like, oh, okay, and she was like, you got to have fun with it though. Like, you know, take selfies in the dressing room and just, you know, have fun with it and just experience that little bit of joy and excitement and safeness to express yourself in that way.
Yeah, I love that so much. I love that so much. And I feel that there's been so many times that someone has said to us a reflection of, oh, you're not sexy, or you're not attractive, or the narratives. And so sometimes when we're given that opportunity, the little voice inside is like, no, but you can't because you're not attractive. Or that's just not who you are. Like, you're not the sexy one. You're not the attractive one. You're not whatever. And this is again like this reclaiming of all of you, this reclaiming of just how freaking divine you already are. Your body is literally a portal. Like, how insane is that? And how sacred is that? That to me just blows me away. And I feel that every single woman gets to feel so incredibly excited and lit up when they dress up and they see themselves in the reflection. And it doesn't have to be for anyone else, but for them. And it's like, can you play with breaking this narrative around who you think you are? Or maybe you are the sexy one, but you've been told that that is like really not okay, or you've suppressed it, or you've been used to maybe manipulating it to get what you want, or to control someone else through that. And can you rewrite that narrative as well? And you know, I have a date night with myself every Monday night. It's like my date night. And I love it. You know, it's like, you know, getting dressed up and just giving it to yourself. I'm a massive advocate of don't wait for a guy to give you anything. Beautiful if they do, but how can we give it to ourselves first? How can we give it to ourselves first? Yeah.
Yeah. And be accepting to receive it ourselves, from ourselves, helps us to then receive it from others. Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge, right? It's like, do I feel safe to receive it? Can I receive it without the narrative of judgment or deserving to receive? No, you're deserving to receive simply because you were born. Like, that is what is.
And even too, like, just touching back on that mindset that you're not sexy or you're not good enough or you're not attractive. We've conditioned that so much in society for mothers. Because, you know, you have a child and then you feel like, oh, I have to look like a mum. I can't wear this because I'm a mum. I can't do this because I'm a mother. I can't go and date who I want because I'm a mother or whatever. Yeah. And we have such restrictions that we've set upon ourselves to not embrace our femininity and our sexuality because we're a mother. And I feel like that is the most obvious reason to express those things. But just society has conditioned us in this complete mentality of this is wrong. This is not okay.
It's so huge, right? This conditioning to be the good girl. And then you move out of the good girl and then you're the good mother. This is why I love working with the shadow, because it's like, it gives you full permission to be like, F the good girl. Seriously, F the good girl. Is she going to be living a life that you can look back on and you can be like, wow, I really lived. Like, I really gave my all to life, because life is no rehearsal. Like, this is it. We're in it. And like you said, that opportunity to then model to your children that they are worthy, that they are worthy to fully claim their full authenticity, that they are worthy to receive, that they are worthy to feel sensual and sexual without guilt, without shutting it down, without constricting it, or without it needing to be transactional. You know, that intimacy gets to be messy, that it gets to be filled with tears, that it gets to be a portal to also release and to see, just like, again, with divinity, any kind of interaction with another, like, that is an honor to be in someone else's energy like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so huge, right? It's moving away from the focus of the outcome. And this is again with our healing journey. Like, can we let go of the attachment to the outcome? Can we let go of the attachment to the climax? Can we be so deeply in love with the process? Can we be so deeply present and in love with the process? And to, again, trust whatever reveals itself in that process.
Yeah.
And I do see like that intimacy piece is such a beautiful dance, right? Of trust, of feeling worthy to receive, of letting go of the outcome or the attachments or the controlling around it needs to look like this. It has a beginning, middle, and end. It's like it will get to a point where that's just not going to feel fulfilling anymore. And it's the same in our life, right? If we keep controlling it and we keep making our world smaller and we keep rejecting the shadow, it's going to come to a point where we've created such a small world that we no longer feel fulfilled.
And I feel like when you do push away the shadow and you don't allow it into your world, you get to a point where you hit that wall. You know, you hit that wall. I can't progress any further. This is the end. Start, middle, end. This is the end. You're not going to get any further. You're not going to grow any further or progress any further in your evolution to really take that next step, to take that next level until you deal with that shadow. That shadow is like the gatekeeper of this door, and you are not going to get through it until you're like, hey, I acknowledge your existence. We can have a little bit of a chat later. Like, if you're just there just trying to run through a closed door, you're just going to end up being exactly where you are, staying exactly where you are, and in pain, not feeling content, not feeling satisfied, not feeling like you have grown and experienced your life to the fullest.
It's so true, right? The shadow being the portal, you know, in so many ways is the shaman's initiation, has always been the way. And it's like knowing and trusting that you are always given on your path what your soul knows it can deal with. We're never given an initiation that our soul doesn't believe that we can't overcome, that we can't really move through in such a deep way. But it's just the resistance to it that creates the pain. But when we surrender into it, then we can allow it to teach us. Then we can become the humble student again.
Yeah.
But I love what you say about, the shadow being the portal, because it really is.
Definitely. And I feel like people go into this journey of self-development, self-healing, self-discovery, and they think, I'm going to get better, but I'm not going to deal with that issue of trauma. I'm just not going to worry about that thing. And by completely blocking off that shadow, they're not going to grow. They're not going to get to where they want to be. And they start to realize that along the way. And eventually, whether they like it or not, they're going to have to deal with it. And sometimes they do it without even knowing that they're doing it. And that's why, it's so important to know that shadows don't have to be scary. They don't have to be traumatic. They don't have to be a horrible, grueling experience. Because sometimes you're dealing with these shadows and you don't even know.
Yeah, so true. And I do think, there's just been like this huge narrative that's been perpetuated around like low vibe, right? So this massive thing, around got to keep the high vibe, all about the high vibe. And so I feel like that has also allowed people to hide in that as well, is because, so-and-so says, just keep the vibration high, just keep in that vibe and don't allow yourself to drop into the low vibration, because then I'm not going to be able to manifest. But this is like the duality again, right? Yes, we are spirit and we are human, and we're here to have the human experience. And I was doing a course called Energetic Match Accelerator, and it was like your shadow, by facing it, actually accelerates your manifestations way beyond you just focusing on staying in the high vibe. Because when you are facing the shadow, it actually brings a lot of clarity. Because some people, you say to them, what is like your ideal, like magical wand, anything's possible, what do you want? And for so many people that's so far out of their realm, they're just like, well, I don't know, I have no idea. And the shadow teaches us what we don't want. So it's like the shadow gives us clues as to the other side of the polarity, teaches us what it is we do and do not want through experiencing it, right? Through experiencing it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how can you know that you're truly in a healthy, communicative relationship if you've not been in a shitty one? Like,
True. So true. And I love that, and that drawing into relationships, because it is like, it's a refining process, right? You understand what you loved about your previous partner or partners, and you understand what you didn't love so much, and then it's like this like refining, and we're all just refining. Oh, okay, this, I really love this about this person. I wasn't so keen on this, so I would love to experience the contrast to this. Again, like, take me to the other side of the polarity. And sometimes you experience that and you're like, actually, no, like, that's not actually what I want either. And that's all good. But it's like, can we see life as like the shadow and the polarity teaching us and aligning us with what actually we do want? It helps to be that North Star in a way.
yeah, it's about that trial and error and working out what it is that works, what it is that doesn't, what it is that we connect with, and what we feel aligns to us. Because if we're not experiencing these experiences, we'll never know what it feels like. We'll never know if this feels right, if this feels uncomfortable, if this feels like it resonates or it doesn't.
So true. And exactly as you're saying, it's, we're all unique. Our souls are all so unique. And again, it's like, don't compare how your relationship looks to anyone else. Like, does this resonate for you? And I really believe in doing like relationship agreements, but from a lens of, we get to make this up, because we do get to make it up, because we're two unique beings who've come from two unique backgrounds, who have two unique aspirations for where we desire to be. So, what would support us in our unique relationship? Like, blinkers on, not looking at what is normal, what is not normal, just tuning into like purely like, what would feel good for us, what would feel nourishing for us. And I love that. It's like, we are all so unique, and we'll all have our own unique way of navigating our world.
Yeah. With that being said, what is the most powerful piece of advice you have ever been given throughout your evolution as a coach and a practitioner, through your journey? What has been the most powerful piece?
Oh my gosh, so much. There's two that really come up.
Yeah.
The first is from one of my ayahuasca journeys, and it was me on the edge of a cliff, holding on for dear life, like, I don't want to fall, I don't want to fall, I don't want to fall. And then, like quite a way down, so I would have to free fall, were these huge hands. And the message was telling me, Simone, you have to let go in order to feel guided, in order to feel held. You have to let go first. You have to be in free fall. You can't hold on and expect my hands to come and lift the weight from underneath your feet. No, that was such a powerful, powerful message for me, because again, it relates to the fear of letting go. And what that's allowed me to do is to continually step into the fear, continually step into things that I don't know the outcome, but I feel this pull in my soul, and I trust myself to just let go of the cliff and allow myself to be held. So that is like a huge message that came through and still guides me today.
That is beautiful, and that's so powerful.
I felt, because in the past, I needed to know before I would let go. I needed to know the next step, at least. I mean, really, I wanted to know the whole picture. Like, that's what I really wanted. But I at least just wanted like just confirmation for this next step. And it was like, I gave you a feeling. Are you going to listen to that or not? It's like, I did give you something, but are you trying to now analyze it? Does it make sense? Does it not make sense? Can I control it? Blah, 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 blah. And that was a real huge initiation. That was actually on my first ayahuasca journey.
Wow, that kind of like what that brought up for me just then was like, stop disregarding the tools that you have if you have this feeling, take the feeling. Stop wishing that you had more. Stop wishing that you had a full picture, that you had a full plan, that, you know, you had all this listed out for you and laid out in instructions step by step. Be thankful and grateful and use the tool that you have, which is that feeling. Lean into it, trust it.
Yeah, so huge. The second piece is that the most sacred thing is whatever is. For me, especially, like always being like driven and wanting to like be successful in the outer world and be this independent woman and blah, blah, blah. Again, another spewed message that we're given, and really seeing how damaging that was to have that narrative, and to see how that was very shut off, again, in the head, not in the body. And then to come back to the most sacred thing is what is, because I'm creating my future in this very moment. I'm creating my future through the choices that I'm making. How am I choosing to show up? What words am I going to speak to myself? What am I going to choose to fuel my body with? Am I going to nourish myself, or am I going to stretch my capacity so far that I disregard what my body is telling me? And really seeing like the most sacred thing is what is, because everything is available to us in the moment. And it again comes away from this lack scarcity mentality of like, gotta do more, I need to know more, I need to chase the thing, to abundance energy, which is everything is sacred in this moment, and I am full and I am whole and I am worthy just as I am, and this moment is sacred even if it's the mundane.
I love that so much.
Yeah, just grounding back in, right? Every day. It's a remembering every day.
For those listeners out there who would love to get to know you more and work with you and feel guided through their shadows, where can they find you?
Yeah, like home for me is really on Instagram. I had a website, I had all the things, but I love channeling all my energy into like one space, again, like that sense of potency. And so you can find me on Instagram, and my name is my name. So Simone, and then it's Parsanejad, which is a lovely long surname. And I know that you'll write it out below.
Yes.
For the listeners. And yeah, I love connecting. Like I've got that account which is purely for working with women, and I love connecting. I've connected with every single follower who's followed me, and really I really value connection. And so I would love to just hear where you're at on your journey. What has your experience been of shadow work been like? And really knowing that you do get to honor those desires of what it is that you're wanting to step into or you're wanting to call in, because I do really believe that if you have a desire, it's yours for a reason. So you get to have it, and you get for that way to be cleared for you as well.
I love that. Oh, well, thanks so much, Simone. I really appreciate you and love having you on.
I appreciate you so much, and just thank you for sharing this space and sharing your wisdom and having this beautiful portal to have these conversations. You know, it's really, really amazing. So just really honoring you as well, and just thanking you so much. Honestly, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been beautiful.
Well, this is your Earth Side Spirit Guide signing off for the week. If you'd like to know more about how you can work with me, you can follow me on Instagram @l.embers or visit my website lembers.com.